The village was full of life and joy. Drums were beating, children were laughing, and everyone was celebrating. It was Ajani's wedding day, and he couldn't stop smiling. His bride Amara was the most beautiful woman in the village. She had a kind heart and a smile that could brighten even the darkest night. The elders blessed their union and the villagers danced late into the night. When it was time to leave, Ajani and Amara walked hand in hand to their honeymoon huts. The small hut stood at the edge of the village, surrounded by tall trees and the soft sounds of nature. Ajani was proud and excited to start this new chapter of his life. Inside the hut, the couple talked about their future. They shared their hopes and dreams, imagining the life they would build together. Ajani was happy, everything felt perfect, but as the night wore on, he noticed something strange. Amara, who had been full of energy earlier, was now quiet. She looked nervous and kept glancing at the window. Ajani thought she was tired after the long day, so he didn't ask so many questions. They went to bed and soon the hut became quiet. Ajani tried to sleep, but something felt off. Amara's breathing was uneven and her body felt stiff. He couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. In the middle of the night, a strange sound woke him up. It was a low hissing noise. At first he thought it was the wind, but when he looked toward the foot of the bed, his heart stopped. There was a large snake on the floor. Its body was thick and its eyes seemed to glow in the dim light of the room. Ajani froze. His heart was pounding in his chest. He didn't know where the snake had come from, but he quickly realized something even more frightening. Amara was not in the bed. Fear gripped him as he sat up. He searched the room with his eyes, hoping to see her hiding in a corner or standing by the door, but she was nowhere to be found. The snake didn't move, it just lay there staring at him. Ajani felt trapped. He grabbed a stick from the corner of the hut, his hands shaking as he held it. He didn't want to harm the creature, but he needed to protect himself. Just as he was about to step closer, the snake moved. He didn't attack, but instead slid quietly into shadows and disappeared. Ajani was left alone, confused and terrified. He stayed awake until morning, sitting by the window and waiting for Amara to return. When she finally walked in, her hair was messy and her clothes looked like she had been outside all night. She gave him a weak explanation, saying she couldn't sleep and had gone for a walk. Her words didn't make sense, but Ajani didn't question her. He wanted to believe her, but deep down something didn't feel right. That night, Ajani pretended to sleep, determined to figure out what was going on. He kept one eye open and watched Amara closely. Hours passed and then it happened. Her body began to change. Her smooth skin turned into rough scales and her arms and legs twisted in unnatural ways. In a matter of moments, Amara was gone and a large snake lay in her place. Ajani's heart raced as he watched the haunted by the fear that she might disappear again. One night, Ajani decided to follow her. He waited for her to leave the hut, making sure to stay out of sight. His heart was pounding in his chest as he quietly stepped out into darkness, making his way through the tall grass. He moved as silently as possible, careful not to make a sound. After a while, Ajani reached the edge of the forest where he saw Amara walking ahead of him. She was moving slowly as though she was being drawn by something invisible. Ajani followed her, keeping a safe distance. He wasn't sure where she was going, but his curiosity and fear pushed him forward. Amara stopped at a clearing where the moonlight shone brightly through the trees. She stood still for a moment, her eyes closed as if she was listening to something. Ajani stepped closer, his heart racing as he moved. A branch snapped under his foot. Amara turned sharply, her eyes glowing in the dark. Ajani froze, his breath caught in his throat. For a moment there was a silence, and then Amara spoke, her voice cold and distant. "You shouldn't have followed me, Ajani." Her words sent a chill down his spine. There was something wrong in her voice, something that didn't belong. "Amara, what is happening to you?" Ajani asked, with his voice trembling. She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped back, her body trembling. Ajani watched as her skin started to change once more, her fingers twisting, her arms elongating. Her body was transforming again, becoming something other than human. Ajani wanted to run, but his feet wouldn't move. He was paralyzed with fear, unable to look away. He could see the scales forming on her skin, the long tail that began to coil behind her. The woman he had married, the woman he had loved, was no longer there. With a final airy ease, the creature had once been Amara turned and sealed her into the forest. She is now a snake. Ajani stood there, rooted on the spot, his mind reeling. What was happening? Was she really turning into a snake? And if so, why? He couldn't understand it. Everything had been normal, no signs, no warnings. One moment they were happy, and the next his wife had disappeared into the night, replaced by this terrifying creature. Ajani ran back to the hut, his heart heavy with dread. He tried to calm himself, but it was impossible. The fear had taken hold of him. He needed answers, but he didn't know where to look or who to ask. The next day, Ajani went to see the village elder. The elder was known for his wisdom, and Ajani hoped he might have some answers. The elder sat in a small hut, surrounded by old books and artifacts. Ajani had always respected him, and today he needed that respect more than ever. "Elder, something is wrong," Ajani said, his voice shaky. "Amara, she changes at night. She becomes something else, a snake." The elder looked up at him, his expression serious. He didn't seem surprised, but there was a sadness in his eyes. "This is not something new, Ajani," the elder said quietly. "This has happened before, many years ago. There are stories, legends of people who were cursed. They changed into animals or worse, something darker." Ajani felt a cold shiver run down his spine. But why? Why her? The elder paused, his eyes narrowing as if searching for the right words. "There is power in our land, a force older than we can imagine," the elder continued. "It has transformed people, changed them into things that are not human. There are stories of people being cursed, of women turning into snake. It is said that these transformations happen when a bond is broken, when trust is lost. Sometimes it is punishment, sometimes it is warning." Ajani didn't know what to think. All he knew was that he couldn't lose Amara, not like this. He couldn't accept that the woman he loved was turning into something else, something dangerous. The elder stood up slowly and walked to a small shelf. He pulled down a dusty old book and handed it to Ajani. "This is the only way," the elder said. "You must find the source of the curse. If you want to save her, you must undo what has been done. But be warned, Ajani, the path will be difficult. The curse is not easily broken." Ajani took the book, his hands shaking. He didn't know what to expect, but he knew he had to try. Amara's life, his life, depended on it. He left the elder's hut with a new sense of determination. He would find answers no matter the cost. He would save Amara, or he would die trying. The next few days were filled with research and quiet desperation. Ajani spent every moment searching for clues, trying to understand what had happened to his wife. But the deeper he dug, the more he realized that the cause was more powerful than he could imagine, and time was running out. Each night, Amara disappeared into the forest, and each morning she returned as if nothing had happened. Ajani grew weaker, his sleep disturbed by nightmares of the creature that once was his wife. He couldn't keep up the fight alone. He needed help, and he needed it quickly. One evening, as he sat alone by the fire, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned, his heart skipping a beat. It was Amara, but this time she wasn't alone. A figure stood behind her, cloaked in shadows. The figure stepped forward and Ajani gasped. It was someone he recognized, someone he never thought he would see again. The person spoke, their voice low and grave. The curse can be broken, but it will not be easy. The figure that stood behind Amara was a man Ajani had not seen in many years, a man from past long forgotten. His name was Kofi, a traveling mystic who had once come to their village with tales of powerful magic, curses and remedies for ailments that no one could explain. But Kofi was not someone villagers trusted easily. His dark robes and mysterious ways made many suspicious of him, and after a few months he had disappeared as suddenly he came. Ajani had heard stories about him, but he never imagined he could cross paths with him again, especially not like this. Kofi's eyes were dark and deep, filled with knowledge and secrets that Ajani could not even begin to understand. His presence sent a chill through the air, and Ajani felt his heart beat faster as he tried to make sense of the situation. Amara stood silently beside Kofi, her face pale, her eyes glazed over. She didn't seem like herself. Her usual warm and gentle smile was replaced by a distant, emotionless expression. It was always going to be her. She has the blood of the old ones running through her veins. Her family, once noble and strong, carried a dangerous secret, one that when awakened would come with a great cost. Ajani struggled to breathe, his mind spinning. He wanted answers, but every word Kofi spoke only seemed to raise more questions. How do I break this curse? Ajani's voice was a low growl, desperate. I need to save her. Kofi looked at Amara with a sad expression. To break the curse, you must first understand it. The curse was placed upon her long before she was born. It was a choice her ancestors made, and the consequences now rest on her shoulders. Ajani shook his head, feeling the weight of Kofi's word crash down on him. What do you mean? A choice? What kind of choice is this? What does she have to do with any of this? Kofi took a deep breath before continuing. Many years ago, Amara's ancestors made a pact with an ancient spirit in exchange for power, wealth, strength, and protection from their enemies. The spirits granted their wishes but at a price. The pact was sealed with blood and the curse was set in place. From that day forward, every generation of Amara's family would be bound to the spirit. The curse would awaken once the bond was broken. Ajani's mind reeled. He couldn't understand. How could something so terrible be hidden from him? Why didn't Amara know about this? The bond was broken when Amara and you were married, Kofi said. Marriage was the final act that would awaken the curse. The union of two souls would disrupt the balance that was kept for generations, and now it is late to undo what has been done. Ajani felt like the ground beneath him had been ripped away. He looked at Amara, her distant eyes now filled with a subtle sorrow. She had no idea what had happened to her, no idea that her entire life had been shaped by a cause she had no control over. Then what am I supposed to do? Ajani cried, his voice cracking. How can I help her if she doesn't even know what's happening to her? Kofi's face was unreadable, but there was a glint of something, maybe hope, in his eyes. There's a way, but it is dangerous. It requires strength, sacrifice, and a willingness to face the truth of what she is. The curse can only be broken when Amara faces the spirits who caused her family. We must take her to the place where the pact was made. The ancient temple, deep in the heart of the forest. That is where the spirit waits. Ajani took a step back. The forest? But the forest is cursed. It is said that no one who enters comes out alive. They are creatures, spirits no one dares to enter. Kofi nodded slowly. The journey is perilous. You will face things you cannot imagine, but it is the only way to save Amara. You must find a temple and destroy the spirit that has held our family captive for so long. Ajani clenched his fist. He didn't care how dangerous it was. To the ends of the earth to save Amara.